Gradually, my shock from waking outside of Philadelphia was beginning to lessen. True, the element of freedom in my mind wouldn't hit proper until I could look back and not see the baleful slave city in my field of view. Using binoculars, just to be sure. Possibly a telescope. Doc Minstrel had instructed me to stay put and just rest until I felt better. In the meantime, I had taken to checking over all of my belongings his assistant had brought back with her. My pitbuck, to my great pleasure, was with me still, as was my fleece and saddlebag, along with, obviously, my journal. Within my saddlebag, I found my goggles and various items taken from the stable. My newly acquired pistol was gone. A reasonable precaution, I guessed. Unfolding it, I intended to put my fleece back on, but shuddered to a stop when I noticed the thick bloodstains coating the wool right around the shoulder. The pain still lingered. If I let my thoughts wander, I could see fleeting images of a frothing, raged, and bloodthirsty raider holding me down to sink the knife into me. During the escape, I'd had too much on my mind to think about it, even while running injured or fighting for my life. But now in the downtime, it all just came back. It wasn't my only injury, apparently. I had been half buried in the rubble of a house, after all. I could feel another wad of bandage around my torso, and my front right leg held a dressing where my pitbuck was normally tied around. With a glance, I saw the pitbuck bore new scars, making it even more like a hunk of scrap metal than it already had been. Yet, with a tap to one of the chunky buttons to turn on the radio, I was surprised to find it still worked. Stable tech knew how to build them, that was for sure. Nervous of offending Minstrel with noise, I immediately turned it off, cutting the DJ's broadcast short.
Who's to say the stable dweller won't help all them slaves when she gets back?
Apologizing internally, I set it down, even if the words did lift my spirits. Little Pip was coming back? Perhaps I could meet her on the road and we could go find my friends together. Yes, already my mind was trawling what I should draw in advance as a gift to her, if I could make her like me. I had to fight the urge to bat my head and purge those distracting thoughts, telling myself, "Crush later, Murky. Recovery now." Sitting back on my haunches and holding my hoof up, I tried to shift the bandages a little. Before any travel on my newly decided objective, I needed to know what had happened to my leg.
Wouldn't say that there's too advisable. Shrapnel, usually the kind you'd find from mines, got embedded in there. Pretty sure I got rid of it, but it's an open wound. Removing the dressing before it's healed would just hurt a hell of a lot and expose it to every bit of infection in the air.
Snapping my other hoof away like a foal caught near the cookie jar, I glanced over at Minstrel, entering the room.
I took a little look from up top of the house. Looks like Sonny'll be back within the hour, if my eyes work right these days.
Could I see?
No. Too many particles in the air. Fallout and dirt on the wind. For someone injured like you are, just you stay down here. Now, I thought I might get to know you a little. That slave mindset is awfully worrying to some pony about to go out into the waste to find his friends. You picked up a gun once, yeah, but as much as I hate to admit it, such a thing is all too common a requirement out here. There comes a time when even myself, a physician, had to fight to protect the ones he loved. Never would have thought I'd have to do that back in the stable.
Briefly, my mind stopped and focused entirely on him. You came from a stable? Minstrel beckoned me to follow. Unsteadily, I trotted after him into the corridor of the house. Ahead of me, I could see the front door, thick and wooden. I was led through beige carpets and exquisite woodwork furniture to a back room. There was a mirror on my left side, and with one glance, I whimpered and moved on with my eyes firmly shut. Within, there was an odd mixture of belongings, ranging from scrap items in disrepair to fully functional tools that I had seen in the stable. In the corner sat an old instrument I'd once heard called a lute. Hanging across a mannequin, I saw a bright blue and yellow jumpsuit, a number I couldn't identify written on the lapels. Armored plates were sewn into it or strapped onto the torso and shoulders. Hung around the neck on a small chain lay a pitbuck that chimed in a pale orange.
I'm an old stallion now, Merc. Stables ain't as common as they used to be. I came out of mine when I was just 16. Only just got this little beauty.
He tapped the pit buck with a hoof, setting it swinging on a chain.
I don't need this stuff too much anymore. Always figured I'd give it to some pony who needed it. But I see you've already got your own. Perhaps I'll sell it to the next trader. Help pay for the supplies to take me home. Hell, I'd sell anything to get back to her again.
How long will that take? Wandering amongst the inventory of his house, Minstrel glanced back at me, that fading mane shifting in the thick air of the home, an eyebrow raised as he leaned on the mannequin.
Hopefully not long at all. Why'd you ask?
We could travel together. More is better than one, right? And we could... Oh. Minstrel had held up his hoof, shaking his head before just staring at me.
Don't think so. We're gonna be taking a lightweight run. Besides, you'll have other things to do.
He was right. My friends, little Pip, my mother even. I had so much of my own to do. My thoughts were broken as a tickling started in my throat. Panicking, I tried to reach for the nearest piece of furniture. A chair. I almost made it. The tickling became a burning as the great retching cough burst from my mouth, followed by an anguished cry as my head seared with pain, dizzying me and knocking me over. The chair toppled, collapsing on the ground beside me as I clutched my chest, quaking and trying to hold more in. Minstrel was beside me quickly, a hoof on my breast as he lowered his ear to my neck.
You're wheezing badly internally. I'm pretty good at patching up folks, but I'm no proper physician. Asthma?
Weeping from the pain, feeling ragged and thin breathing from hot lungs, I lay my head on a hoof and whispered instead, "Rad's in my lungs. Please, I need Rad away soon."
Afraid I don't have any of that. Pretty valuable stuff that most folks need. But I could mix a hot drink for that throat and...
Please, I need Rad away. Another cough interrupted me as I tried to rise, making me retch and stay hunched over, fighting the urge to scream as the patched wound on my skull pounded and seemed to grind the pain into me.
Sorry, Merc. Don't have any. Best bet is to get you on your hooves and out there soon enough. Once Sunny's back, I'll see if she can't take a quick trip to the traders and round some up.
Helping me back up, my breathing became heavy as the episode died down. Breathing became a little easier inside, with apparently less rads in the air. I'm sorry, Minstrel. I haven't even thanked you for what you have done with me yet. I'm not sure what I can offer in return to match, well, all this. Hoisting my hoof over his neck, he held on to me and to lead me back through, shaking his head as he went.
Think not of it. Sometimes a good act can return itself much better in the long term. Now, come on. Time we continued helping you keep your mind off this illness. Feeling up to it?
Nodding, I made my way back through with his help. Yet, as we passed by the door to his storage room, I cast a glance back at the mannequin. So that's what stable dwellers wore to protect themselves. Battle barding. She had a scoped revolver, too, according to Glimmerlight. What had she called it again? My memory failed me, but remembering her form from the pit, contrary to what Glimmer might claim, I did remember more than just certain bits of said form. I mentally dressed her up. Finally, a little image of what my beloved legend looked like. I'd have to draw it later, but for now, taking a new page in the main room, I sat and struggled to remember. We...
Don't strain yourself there. Just let it flow. That's how you draw, ain't it?
Like it all just comes from my soul itself.
How very poetic. You're a little more intelligent than you look.
Ceasing my thoughts, I glanced sideways with narrowed eyes to catch him chuckling.
No offense meant, of course. What I mean is, you can't read or write. You have not been taught any real math or a lot of standard life skills. But you aren't stupid. You just weren't ever told how. Free from slavery, you could be some pony better than you are, you know?
Somehow, some way, that reassured a large part of my ever-worrying mind to finally settle and smoothly think back. We were on the run, on hooves, that I remember. but they spotted us a lot of times, chasing us. Shaking, I lowered the charcoal, letting it almost control itself. Bold lines crushing everything into a thin alleyway. It was an alleyway. Spurred by my subconscious drawing, I began to fill in the details, a side-on shot of all three of us galloping forward. Brimstone at the lead, grim and determined with a huge muscular stride to his gallop. Behind him, Glimmerlight with her short mane blowing in the wind.